Good afternoon. Welcome to this program that is devoted to virtual reality and its educational potential and possibilities. And I have four really great guests who can elaborate on this quite contemporary and also quite complex topic. My name is Andrea Slováková. I am a part of the festival team. I'm curator of experimental film programs and also of the program of the works in virtual reality. And we at the Ji.hlava International Documentary Film Festival, we have had this VR zone for 8 years already. So we are following the trends in the VR creative processes and also in the development of the infrastructure for many years already. This discussion is within the Visegrad Accelerator, and it was enabled by the kind support of the International Visegrad Fund. And now let me introduce my great guests. Alžběta Šašinková, she's from Czech Republic. She's a researcher at Masaryk University, and she focuses on social and cognitive aspects of virtual reality, especially in educational context. Currently, she is working on research projects on using VR to raise social cohesion among distance students and on developing AR-mediated psychotherapeutic interventions to support psychological well-being in young teenagers. Gyöngyi Bujdosó, she's here from Hungary. She's associate professor and researcher at the University of Debrecen, Faculty of Informatics at the Department of Computer Science. Her main research areas are human-computer interaction, also privacy awareness, and electronic teaching and learning. She focuses on motivational possibilities of VR, and she's working together with her colleagues on projects projects aimed on primary schools, but also projects aimed on the adult education. And she's involved in projects using VR and eye tracking techniques to raise effectiveness of information transfer in teaching processes and to raise students' motivation in learning. From Poland, we have Krzysztof Pijarski. He's a visual artist and researcher. He's also associate professor, and since 2019, he's head of the Visual Narratives Lab at the famous Lodz Film School. He founded and co-directs this laboratory, which is a great facility, not only for the school, but also in the context of the whole Poland. Krzysztof is skilled in photography and contemporary art, and this media lab that he founded and co-directs is dedicated to exploring the current artistic and cognitive potential of visual storytelling. And again from Czech Republic, we have Vojtěch Radakulan. Vojtěch is a visual artist. He graduated first in sculpture and architecture. He is now a doctoral student at Czech Technical University of Applied Sciences, and he's also one of the esteemed teachers at FAMU, the Film and Television Faculty in Prague. His work combines fine art, architecture, and game design with an emphasis on simulations and the creation of fictional worlds. He uses hand drawings, text installation, game technologies. He exhibited at the Venice Biennale in 2021 and at Ars Electronica. And he also received, in Czech context, very important Ji.hlava prize. So this is really a great panel with which I have the opportunity to discuss especially the educational aspects and potential of virtual reality. So in the first part of the discussion, we will focus on the works, on the examples of good practices, and the works and their features and characteristics that can be useful for education of different target groups. In the second part of the discussion, we will focus on the infrastructure, on the supporting structures for producing and distributing and dissemination of this kind of VR works. So, let's be very concrete from the beginning. Could you say some examples, maybe one or two examples of the works in virtual reality, or maybe in other realities, augmented reality, mixed reality, ideally produced in your respective countries, but you can also use examples from other countries. The examples that, according to you, have the educational value, but also are interesting thematically and or aesthetically. So, Alžběta, would you start?
Gladly. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. When I think about concrete examples, one thing that always pops up in my head is an experience that is not Czech, but I have experienced it in Bratislava with a friend from Hungary, so I thought it sort of counts. It was produced in Germany, I believe, by the Goethe Institute. And I don't know if you've seen, but it's a virtual reality version or adaptation of Franz Kafka's Verwandlung. I hope I pronounced it well. It's probably called Metamorphosis in English, is it? Thank you. And it was a very powerful way of using virtual reality, where the user actually experienced waking up as a, spoiler alert, as a big bug. I don't know if you're familiar with the story. And it was minimalistic, and the extension of the story, you know, it was a rather short period of the story itself, but it had a huge illustrative and emotional power in it. I highly recommend trying it on. It takes only a couple of minutes, but it used the graphical, the emotional potential of the technology. It had, you know, it really gave you the idea of how strong the story was and how disturbing it was, really. Disturbance is probably the most crucial feature that I remember from that. So that was a very nice example, and I believe that the educational potential was very well used here. But it also depends on what you actually consider educational. You know, if this was more school related, like that's the piece of literature we've all learned about at school. But if you go after, for instance, attitude and influencing attitudes, there are many more examples that we could go quite wild discussing, actually.
This was a beautiful example, thank you. Gyöngyi, do you want to continue, please?
I should emphasize an immersive virtual reality platform that was created. Some students with the professor. This is the Maxware. This is a platform, online platform, and you can use it offline and online. And it can be used for education because you can feel it with many contents. So you can use these virtual reality spaces for organizing your content, but you can use it for organizing your work too. For example, this is very good for managers and leaders because a lot of people can join to these spaces and they can work in one space immediately. And it is a very good opportunity to create online exhibitions. There are many exhibitions in it. And you can download it. You can download these spaces with the content of exhibitions, and you can change the content, and you can add content, your own content to them. So this is very nice because it works like an exhibition, but you can put your own content to them too. So if you want to use them, so that's very interesting, and we use it always.
Very inspirational, very special. Thank you.
Thank you.
Krzysztof, please.
First of all, thank you for having us here and me here. It's great to be part of this. And if I were to speak about Poland, I'd rather speak about larger initiatives than individual works when it comes to education. One thing that we could immediately say that you have two very good educational works in the exhibition this year, which is the JFK immersive project and the one dedicated to Martin Luther King, especially that one, because all of us felt that it has a very high educational value, especially for young persons, implicating them and also showing them in a positive way what discrimination means and how you can transcend it, I would say. So, and it was very well designed and very well using immersion and participation in a very strong way. So I think this is a very good benchmark for an interesting educational piece. But when it comes to Poland, I would mention a couple of things. One is actually a company, like Gyöngyi said. It's called Cinematic VR. It was founded by Konrad Zaya. He's been very active in Poland in the realm of VR, and they have also built a platform for educational purposes. So it's a software that is open. You can use it for building international educational experiences based on Cinematic VR, and it has this structure of choose your own adventure. So you can basically, produce narratives that are choice-based that can guide you through certain processes. And they use it for companies, but you can also use it for other. So you can use it for professional education, but also for more general education. And one more thing they do in terms of education, there is this workshop series in Krakow every year. It's called Film Spring Open, which is very practice-based, and part of it is also dedicated to Cinematic VR, and it's done by Konrad Zaya. So he has been very, very invested in the kind of educational aspect of VR, and now there is also a growing sphere of working on the educational value of immersive media at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow under the leadership of Marta Materska-Samek. She is part of the Knowledge and Innovation Communities European. They just got 2 Horizon grants, and they're working on heritage using immersive media. So this is going to be happening soon. And one last thing maybe to mention, this is a state-sponsored program. It's called Niepodległa. I'm naming it a little bit with a little bit of caution because it's a national patriotic program. It was founded in 2018 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Polish independence. But part of their program was actually producing VR videos that deal with historical events and using them as educational material. And part of their program was also to bring VR to schools. And they have actually brought headsets to many hundreds of schools in Poland. And right now it's not working really well because there is no really well-developed program, but there are a lot of headsets in a lot of schools. So when we go to the infrastructure, we can talk about this. This is something that can be used. Right now it's used mostly for patriotic education. But I think they went in a good direction because the latest films they have developed, they're not about big martyrological moments like war and battles, but it's about individuals. So it's about famous woman tennis player in the interwar period, Polish woman tennis player, about the man who first who produced the first film in Poland and who developed cinematic equipment and stuff like that. So it becomes more of a kind of initiative of I don't know, proposing how to say that, role models, yes, that can be used in primary school education. So that kind of makes sense, I would say. Yes, this is maybe the
Perfect.
Yes.
These are really very inspirational examples. Wojciech, could you add some more examples?
Yeah, so when it comes to VR in schools, I'm somehow skeptical, and maybe I'm gonna throw for that case things from the extended reality, and that's a series of books which is called Vivid Books. Maybe you have seen it, and it's a way of how to explain pupils, usually elementary school pupils, basics of physics. And the idea about it is that it's about cooperation and gaming, and that you learn by from your schoolmates by doing and playing. And so the reason why I'm skeptical about VR in schools is that mostly when you put the headset on, you lose your eyes, you lose your connection with the teacher, with everyone else, and that is something what is hard to overcome. It has its own way, it has its own place, but XR does a thing that suddenly you can see what the person next to you does, and suddenly it becomes a social interaction. And I think this is something what we should aim for when it comes to the exhibition of VR things, to make it people connect. So not to have them roam in their own headsets, just watching at each other. And there's a whole huge, like a branch of more artistic like endeavors when you try to elaborate interaction between people who have headsets, between people who don't have headsets, between people who are worried about VR, who love VR, and who I don't know, like just want to spend time on the phone or with a book. And when it all comes together, then it's a nice mixture of all the extensions and something which connects rather than disconnects. So that's my take on this.
I understand, and maybe following up on what you said, you really gave great inspirational examples, and you mentioned emotional value, also illustrative approach that can make something more comprehensible. You mentioned possibility of influencing attitude, helpful platform for organizing content or placing and commenting and contextualizing your own content, explaining complex phenomena like, for example, discrimination through immersion and participation. You mentioned that heritage can be made more accessible, and also Wojciech, you mentioned some of the like weak sides or negative sides. Can we now try to say maybe in more abstract way, but still you can use also, of course, the concrete examples, but can we say what aspects or features of the works are very useful for the educational purposes? And of course you can always connect it with certain target groups, because of course it is very different when the work is for pupils in elementary school, and it's different when it is for I don't know, for adult education. So what do you think that are these important features, characteristics and aspects of the works that can help the works to really serve this educational purpose? would you start, Alžběta, again? Or maybe somebody else can start, but as you wish, you can start.
Thank you. You just tackled the question that I tried to include in my first answer, and that's what we actually expect the education to do. Because even from the examples that we all mentioned, it varies a lot. So, for instance, in my research, I could tell you that VR works very well when trying to make people understand, which means like reach comprehension, understanding of a certain phenomenon. We use that for teaching hypsography, making people understand what contour lines on maps actually mean. And for that very particular purpose, VR seems extremely efficient and enjoyable also, which normally I was myself surprised that maps can be fun. So that's comprehension, but it's still quite a tiny aspect of education. And I think what Vojta mentioned about the connecting people is much more important, the broader understanding of education. And I quite agree that mixed reality or extended reality or augmented reality has a higher potential in that part, which is also what we're focusing now on our Horizon project, using mobile phone actually, the Pokemon Go style augmented reality to connect students, young adults within their groups to, to increase their sense of belonging. And that might be a very strong educational purpose. We just need more, enlightened leaders in education policies to make them understand that. Did I answer your question? Yes. So it pretty much depends. What is important about VR educational intervention pretty much depends on what you're trying to achieve with them.
I understand. Gyöngyi, would you like to follow up?
Thank you. In my work, the most important and the best feature of the virtual reality in my work, that it motivates the students for working, because there are many online things and they work with them, and of course they read everything that they have to. But as I saw, the virtual reality made some impression for them, and they work much more than we asked from them. So they worked really a lot. And they work after it, because at the university they have to do something, and we will give grades. And usually the students after it they stop to work and learn about it. But the virtual reality brought some new things, because the students worked on the virtual reality environment after they got the grades. So it was a very motivational thing for them.
And do you think that this higher motivation is determined by the sole fact of the possibility of immersion, or is it because of the possibilities of interaction?
I think both. Mm-hmm. Because the immersion is helped for them to work without watching the time, how much time they spend there, and the interactivity helps with do something and to have the learning process in a very nice thing. So I think they enjoyed it really very much, and they worked a lot after that they had to. So the motivation was the best thing that I found in the virtual reality environments, and I use it for teaching, mainly in the teacher training, because they had to design their teaching environment for the students, and it was very inspiring for them.
Oh, if I can just ask if the teachers that were allowed to design their own environment in VR, were they open to do it? Because I can imagine that some of the teachers are maybe hesitating or reluctant about using this kind of technology. So you achieved working with the teachers and maybe junior and also senior teachers in this?
We had project only junior teachers, and yes, I could manage that they didn't fear of it. So at the beginning it was a little bit strange because they used a virtual environment like a paper or something like that. They put PDF files in with text and text and text and text there, and I just look at them that what 25 year old people, and you want to have only text. You want to read only text, and don't you want to do something else? And after that, they designed, and they thought about it, that there are a lot of possibilities in virtual reality environment, because you can have immersions, you can have interactions, you can have online things, and you can have social life in the virtual reality environment. And after it, at the end, they realized it, and they designed very nice environments for their students.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Great job. Krzysztof, what do you think that are the important features and aspects of the works in VR that they can serve the educational purpose?
Well, first I would very much like to agree with Wojciech. In the first round, yes, of course. In the first round, I was just speaking about what is already there, which doesn't mean that it's optimal, yes. And this is something we start with, but I totally agree that the most potential is interaction between people, not being closed in a virtual environment by yourself, but meeting others in it and collaborating in this environment, and that has the biggest potential. And when we think of things like, for example, science classes, this is an amazing potential, because we can play with scale, we can play with physical forces, we can play in a safe way, yes, with unsafe things in a way, yes. So the kind of playful potential to learn really complicated things in such a setting is really amazing, I would say. But it's also very interesting and very important in interpersonal things. For example, in working with stereotypes or attitudes. This is research that is being done in Barcelona at the Event Lab by Mel Slater and his team, for example. And they've been working on, for example, how do you, can you teach people about the how violent behavior influences others, yes? So working with mechanisms of empathy. And they have had, their research shows that it's quite effective in actually teaching people what kind of impact certain behaviors have on others, making them impersonate the people who are the object of these behaviors, for example, yes? So these are all things that are still being researched and developed, but I think that there's a huge potential. And the last thing I would say is that, you know, there's this tagline I really like. There is a podcast by the Mozilla Foundation, which is called IRL, in real life. And the tagline is, digital life is real life. And, you know, introducing XR into educational settings is very important, because our lives have been for some time and are becoming even only more hybrid, yes? And part of our social interactions, a large part of our social interactions is happening online. And there is no real place where we can actually discuss what a safe space online means. For example, what kind of social interactions are acceptable, what is not. So without young people actually having that space to be in a space together, do something together, and then discuss the effects of that, yes, or even reflect on it, just, you know, leaves this open, and it just goes unchecked, yes. And then there are all these discussions. What does violence in XR settings mean, etc., etc. If we don't address this early on, young people who grow into this world won't have the tools to deal with these situations. So I think it's very important to actually address that at some point.
Wojciech, could you try to be more optimistic now, please?
Yeah, okay, I will try. I guess the conclusion was, in the end, optimistic, but I started on a negative note. One thing which I would like to talk now about maybe is immersion. We hear it a lot. And I think it's maybe a little bit too overused notion when it comes to the fact that at some point we will get so used to it that it won't work anymore. And then what I think comes next is that it's not about immersion, but about the deprivation, actually, that at some point the VR does the thing that we lose the sight, and that's the most powerful sense we have, and we substitute it with something which is artificial. And that means that after we come back to the real life, or sort of like we remove the VR again, we are able to see the real life in a way that we didn't see it before, because of this kind of deprivation, which was caused by something very, very artificial. And when it's well made, you can make experiences which are almost real, but there is something off. And that thing which is off, maybe that's something you want to focus on. Maybe that's something you want to see, and you will see it better after you will remove the glasses, not while in the glasses. So that's, I think, maybe a little bit niche topic, but also, I think, important.
Thank you for saying this. I'd like to add something to that. Last year, during a conference, we invited a scholar from Switzerland, Felix Stalder, whom I admire a lot. He's from Zurich, and he had a talk about immersion, and he asked this question. He put it quite straightforwardly, which I really liked, is that it's really strange that everybody's talking about immersion as if it were something new, in the sense that, you know, we are simulating environments that are supposed to be more and more lifelike so that we feel present in them, whereas our life situation is immersion. I mean, we are immersed in the world around us, yes? So where does this need or this desire or this fantasy come from, that we want to have like a second world in which we could immerse ourselves and be real there, yes? And what does it mean? And we've been talking in the lab for a long time that the real challenge in VR is not to be more lifelike, but to generate distance, in the sense that we are in a situation, but how do you induce reflection? Yes, how do you induce a situation where you can see yourself acting or see yourself in this situation, so that when you take off the headset, you see something new or something else or something more in the reality around you. And I think that we shouldn't be talking about immersion as if it is the holy grail, because it's, you know, it's a fact of life in many respects. And also immersion as a psychological state doesn't have anything to do with mimesis. It's not about, you know, the simulation being more and more real. Yes, we are immersed in reading a book if it's a good book. We are immersed when we watch a film that transports us somewhere. It doesn't have to be like literal, lifelike, perfect simulation.
Exactly, that was a very precise remark. Now, let's be a little bit more pragmatic. So from this a little bit even philosophical point of view, we will go back to the harsh reality. And I think it's very important in our countries to talk about the infrastructure, to talk about the possibilities of production, of financing, of the distribution, of the presentation of these kind of works, and also about the possibilities of creating such platforms that you mentioned. It's really great that we have several departments or facilities that are within the academic institutions, and it's really great that there are also artistic works being produced in all of our countries, but let's be honest, it's in a very small scale, in a very small amount, if we compare ourselves to some other countries, also in Europe, also in, for example, Northern America, but also in Asia. And I think that if we want to support this segment, we really need to reflect the conditions we are working in, and what is the current status, and what should be better, and in which way. And all of you have quite a big experience with creating these works in different realities, in trying to get the works to the audience. So let's speak about this, about the conditions. Maybe we can start with Hungary and Poland. Maybe first I will ask Krzysztof, because I very much, I a little bit envy you, your laboratory that you have at the Lodz Film School. We also have some small, I don't know if to call it a lab, some small facility at FAMU where Vojtěch works, and I am also from this institution, but it's like very minimalistic in comparison what you built, and that is fantastic, really. It's something that is unique, even in the European context, not only in the Polish context. So please, Krzysztof, if you can start with evaluating what do you think about the current infrastructure in Poland?
Okay. So one thing I already mentioned was the headsets in the schools. That is already something. There is one funding mechanism for experimental film in the National Film Institute, but it's very exclusive or exclusionary because it doesn't allow new people to enter the conversation, because the entry criteria are so high that you have to have experience in producing that people who are new to the field are just unable to apply at all. And so not many things have been produced like that. So there is the Niepodległa I mentioned. This is why I mentioned it, because they had budget to actually produce stuff, but it was all curated. There was no open calls for that. And there is the Adam Mickiewicz Institute, which is an institute that is supposed to. It's also a government agenda. It's an institute that's supposed to promote Polish culture abroad. And they also developed, I mean, it was not a systematic endorsement of XR, but they were open to this kind of things. Hence, the VR experience that is about Stanisław Lem was produced by them, produced by Marta Szarzyńska. And Marta Szarzyńska now is also co-creating in the KIPA, Krajowa Izba Producentów Audiowizualnych, the national, it's not national, the state, how to say that? Association of Audiovisual Producers, thank you. So this year they opened an XR division, and they don't have their own funds, but local producers are actually organizing to have a place from which they can speak, yes? And this is happening. So that is also a very good development. And the head of this division is Maciej Dydo. He used to work for the Ministry of Culture, very experienced person, and I think he's really great in endorsing and trying to develop XR media. So that is something that's happening. As a part of Instytut Adama Mickiewicza, for example, they also produced the Curator, which is an interactive narrative-driven exhibition which addresses the history of Polish design. It's really beautiful. It was produced 2 years ago, but it still hasn't, I don't know for what reason, it hasn't premiered. So it has a first preview at Tallinn right now. And it was done by Jacek Nagłowski, who is my close collaborator and the head of the VR studio at the Visual Narratives Laboratory, which I founded 5 years ago in Łódź. So just a couple of words about that. I mean, we were very fortunate in the sense that there was a group at the film school that felt like, the film school in Łódź is a very established and acknowledged film school. At the same time, it's also quite traditional in the sense that, we know how to make good films, and this is what we teach. So we had this dream, this idea that we could also experiment a little bit. Also because at the film school, there is the tradition of the workshop of film form with Józef Robakowski, Wojciech Bruszewski, so people who were actually pushing the limits of experimental filmmaking. And that was a tradition that for me personally was very important, and we really wanted to go back into that and look at digital culture and where film is actually developing, because, you know, in Asia, you have, for example, series that are in the vertical format right now, yes, and not horizontal. And everybody thought, I mean, I was taught at the film school that, Krzysztof, the horizontal frame, this is the paradigm, you know, and now suddenly, you know, we're watching films like this. So it is changing incredibly fast, and this is something that we wanted to explore, and we started talking about it a couple of years ago, and you know, I had these kind of different conversations with people. And even we wanted to do a research project about VR, what editing means in VR. It came out from the editing department, yes? Like, how do you work with that? And how do you think about the language of film in omnidirectional movies? And the person who was supposed to be the head of that grant was Milenia Fiedler, who is now the dean of the school. But at that time, because of personal reasons, she was not able to become head of the grant. So it just ended with some kind of draft. And then a new government project came along, a grant scheme that is called the Regional Initiative of Excellence. And this idea was to actually give additional funds to schools that are really good at one thing, yes, and smaller schools, not the biggest universities that get the most funding.
Fantastic.
So this is, and when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is for us. I mean, we should take advantage of this. And we spent 6 months writing the grant. I built the team together with my partner Krzysztof Franek, who is now the vice dean of the school, and we met during the discussions, and it's been the two of us who's been leading this lab for the 5 years, and luckily we got the grant, yes, and it was quite unexpected. I remember my wife laughing at me, you know, you're writing that grant again, you know, it's gonna be funny, but you know, do your thing, and we got it, and little did we know, and you know, we could speak more about this, but I don't want to take too much of the time. But it is really also amazing that what we started with, the ideas that we had, and where we are now, it's like it's just two different worlds. Because when we started, we all thought that we would be doing cinematic VR. Yes, we would be doing films in 360 because we are a film school. So like we wanted to buy cameras and, you know, and think about what it means to edit films, what it means to direct films that are omnidirectional. But then when we started doing open calls, and this is what we did, and we produced I think nearly 15 VR pieces. Most of the people didn't want to do cinematic VR for reasons that we talked about, and Vojtěch was the person who said it out loud during our deliberations yesterday, that it is not enough cinematic VR, because what VR gives us, or XR media give us, is the freedom to move, the freedom to explore, the freedom to interact. Yes, and so very quickly it was obvious that all the people, most of the interesting projects that came from the open calls, they were actually for interactive virtual XR pieces.
These are really like fantastic examples. And Gyöngyi, how is it in Hungary? What are the production conditions and maybe also distribution possibilities?
Fortunately, almost every university has a virtual reality laboratory, smaller or bigger, but everywhere, because there are many researchers on virtual reality in Hungary, at the science universities and the art universities too. So we have art pieces in virtual reality. So if you want to see, for example, we have a DALI exhibition now where there is a very nice virtual reality video, VR video there, and you can check the pieces of DALI. You can see everything, the elephants and everything from outside and inside and from up and down. So we have many artistic pieces, and we have many research on how to use the virtual reality in teaching, because if you show the virtual reality for the students, they can spread the positive things of the virtual reality, and I hope and we hope they can use in their work, and they can show, and they can find new ways for using the virtual reality.
Are these departments or laboratories financed by the universities, or is there some other support, as Krzysztof mentioned, some grant schemes or some other sources of the money, or just the universities?
Not only the universities, we have many grants from the government and from the EU too, and we built these laboratories, I don't know, long time ago. At our university, we have this laboratory since 2009.
2009?
2009, because we
Fantastic.
started with small pieces, and after that we had bigger laboratory. So we can work in the laboratory, and the students can work in this laboratory. So this is very nice thing. And we hope that the students will find the new ways, because we can show what's the ways of presence, how people use, and what kind of possibilities people found in the whole world, and they can find their new ways, I think.
And what about the possibilities outside the universities?
Outside the universities, there are some schools where you can find some of the devices, not big laboratories. So there are some, but it would be better to have more. But I think these devices will be cheaper a bit in the future, and we will have possibility to have these devices and these devices, the virtual reality laboratories in the primary school and secondary schools. But we have some secondary schools where there are these devices, so they can use the virtual reality products there.
Fantastic. Maybe it's also connected with the fact that in Hungary there is you are teaching the media literacy at high schools as well. It's not the same situation in Slovakia or Czech Republic, so maybe this is also connected with
Yes.
this kind of education. Very interesting. Let's go to Czech Republic. Yes. Alžběta, will you start? How we have it here?
From the university perspective, obviously, we have quite a lot of facilities around the country focused on research of VR in various contexts, whether they're focusing more on the visual aspects and visual informatics or the educational. And there has been recently several grant calls, mostly by the Technology Agency of the Czech Republic, focused that was encouraging to apply for grants on VR-related research. And my perspective personally, we have luckily received some of those grants for funding for research, and my motivation was to affect the infrastructure in the most positive way that we can, which I believe is get a critical view of what VR is actually good for and what VR is useless for, which is a huge question, and I think we're all still struggling around it somehow. And so in my head, the ideal version would be that first we know we have the evidence about where to use it, and then we implement it into schools. What's happening in real life, though, is that there are quite a few schools around, whether elementary or high schools or even universities, that do buy the headsets and then wonder what to do with them, and they start searching for the content and start asking questions about what content is actually high quality one, what is it that we should provide the students with. We hope to, offer some possibilities, and we're collaborating with many of these schools. Outside schools, because we've been focusing quite a lot on formal education, but there's also the huge role of non-formal education. In the Czech Republic, I don't know if you know, but we have like the thickest network of public libraries in Europe. We have really many libraries, and libraries are a perfect hub for providing this kind of technology and quality content. So we've been collaborating with libraries to deliver quality content, VR content to wide public. It's been working quite nicely. I highly recommend libraries and librarians for collaboration. And then there's the commercial sphere. We have quite many companies focused on developing VR content, and it's not bad at all. But it's a different world, They have the money is just a different. It's a different sport, really, because naturally in the commercial sector, the money is much higher available. But I hope that for the future outlook, I would really like these two branches to connect somehow, not to be that divergent. But I really hope that in the future we will manage to get the know-how that we have, the evidence-based stuff that we know from our research, and connect it with the commercial content, because I believe that's the potential for future use, for reasonable use of VR. But I might be naive here.
I think it's very optimistic, but also constructive, what you said, and I'm happy to hear that it's not only the academic environment, but also the network of the libraries that are included in the dissemination of the works. So to conclude this topic, and also the whole debate, because we should wrap up now. Vojtěch, would you like to add something more about the infrastructure in Czech Republic, please?
I have direct experience with two branches. Like one is as a PhD candidate at the Czech Technical University. So there we have a lot of people who are very skilled in very technical fields. So we have company like VR Engineers, which is one of the most high resolution headset in the world, basically, and that's great. And so that's a technical point of view. And when it comes to art point of view, it's somewhat more difficult, I would say, because in technical university you have people who can directly in their master or bachelor studies get involved with virtual reality and directly develop for it. I mean, applications, technical point of view. And when it comes to the art school, it's really difficult to actually get to the, I would say, top of the pile of the skills you have to know, because I mean, for example, I teach like some of the basics for the some of the basic skills you need to have. And if I would just have to illustrate it, it's like, so first you need to know 2D graphics. Then you can become graphic out of that. You can do graphic design. Then you must do 3D graphics, so you can become 3D graphic designer or animator. And then, so you have to know that, like animation, 3D graphics. Then you pick up some programming. Voila, you can do games. And then on the top of that, there is a virtual reality, which means that you can also pick up at the top of that the virtual reality, which means that after, for example, 4 semesters with my courses, I'm able to, let's say, open the basics, see them, this is the headset, this is how you put your content there, that's it. It's, I mean, we're getting there, but it's a very, very difficult and there is a lot to it you have to know in order to do it. And the last thing, maybe fast, is that I wouldn't underestimate the lone wolf tactics when it comes to the production. And that is that some of the pieces I have seen were made just by one person with a you don't need much, I think. You need the skill, you need the education, but once you have it, it's a computer and the glasses, and even so you don't have to produce like high quality, super realistic content, and even with that, it's possible. Yeah, time, yeah, of course, but still, I believe it is possible, and I know such people. So that is to conclude.
That is an excellent finish of our discussion. So thank you very much, Alžběta Šašinková, Gyöngyi Bujdosó, Krzysztof Pijarski, and Vojtěch Radakulan. Thank you for being with us and discussing this fantastic topic that we could really continue discussing for many more hours, but I think that we managed to say several very important things, how it is in the Visegrad region with the virtual reality. Thank you. Let me also invite all of you to the space just next to this hall, where it will be here. Sorry. So let me invite you to stay here also for the small, not so very formal award ceremony, because the people that you see here, three of them, Gyöngyi, Krzysztof, and Vojtěch, they were also the jury of the virtual reality works that are presented at our festival. The VR zone is in the gallery that is in Komenského Street, so you can visit it during the whole festival until Sunday. And this brave jury, they saw all the works. They saw 18 works, also the linear, the cinematic works, these 360 degrees films that are presented in the space of the so-called VR cinema, and also the interactive experiences, interactive installations. And then they had a very, very intensive time watching all of these works, and then they were discussing which of the work should receive the main award.
All right. So should we announce the winner? Yes. So upon deliberating and watching all the presented VR pieces, we decided that the main prize for VR experiences goes to a real-time animated piece that maximizes the medium's potential, offering viewers the full freedom of movement and a sense of participating in a story, in a documentary about a feature film that was never produced. Missing Pictures, Naomi Kawase by Clément Deneux. And we also decided on two honorary mentions. One, for pushing VR video to its limits in depicting historical events of persecution in 1950s Taiwan, especially for an attempt at showing an intense moment of violence through immobility. That honorary mention goes to The Man Who Couldn't Leave by Singing Chen. And the second honorary mention, we felt like we need to highlight an excellent VR video that shows how sensuous experiences, such as the caress of water on the skin, can be felt with just visuals and music in a documentary manner. This is Flow by Adrian Lockman. So that would be it. Thank you so much.